Hello, everyone. This is Alfredo Abate, your current Chicago Oracle User Group President. Welcome to today's webinar. As an attendee, you'll be in listen-only mode. You can ask questions in the chat window, which we will monitor. All questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. We'll also be streaming live on our YouTube channel, and the recording will be available there to view shortly after the presentation is finished. It's great to be here with you today virtually, as the group hasn't met in person since last August. For those that are new to the Chicago Oracle Users Group, we welcome you. Traditionally, our group meets between 4 to 6 times per year in various locations around the Chicagoland suburbs for presentations as well as hands-on workshops by Oracle experts, ACEs, and authors. With the restrictions in place due to COVID, we decided to go virtual to continue to deliver awesome technical content to our members. Today is our 9th webinar in a series of 20 that we'll be holding until November 18th. You can look at our entire schedule on our website. We have updated our website so you can register for all remaining webinars. So please make sure to take a look at those. And our website is COUG.us. You can see it in front of you as well at the moment. Our user group runs completely unfunded. Our members don't pay any dues and our meetings have always been free. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, OAP's Net Partners, for providing the Zoom webinar platform. They are an Oracle Gold partner and systems integrator with specialties in areas of financial, business solutions based on Oracle applications, both on premises and in the cloud. They provide services in the areas of AP automation, Apex development, database upgrades, and administration. Next week, don't miss our webinar with Senior Oracle DBA and Oracle ACE Director, Liran Amitsi, on Better Designed and Sorry. Let's design our DB schema. You can register for that on our website right now. Today, we are delighted to have Sarah Zumbrum present to us on From OBIEE to OAC, What's Different and What's Gained. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you, Alfred. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm going to hand over the control of the screen here, stop sharing, and let you take over.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here today and happy to be reporting from Raleigh, North Carolina. So not necessarily in the Chicago area, but here nonetheless, and happy to be here. So today I'm going to talk about moving from OBIEE to OAC, and it's going to be very informal. So I'm just going to tell you some things that I have learned over the past about three and a half years of helping customers move from OBIEE to OAC, considerations you may want to make, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to start out with a slide deck and kind of go through what is OAC, what are the features of it, maybe what are some new features over OBIEE, and then kind of go into some migration paths as well as the pricing options and how things are done. And if there's time, which is no promise, because sometimes I can talk, sometimes I don't, we can all have a demo lined up afterwards so you can actually see what it looks like in the tool. So a little about me. I am a principal cloud architect at Oracle. I recently changed teams and now I'm on the analytics and data warehousing team. However, I've been doing SBase and OBI and OAC and all those different pieces for about 15 years now. I was formerly an ACE director, Oracle ACE director before coming to Oracle. So clearly been in the space for a long time. And then I also have a blog that I kind of talk about anything and everything analytics. And I have some data warehousing ones queued up. So if you're interested in the autonomous database, what is it, what's included and all that, I'm gonna be talking about that using some, in my opinion, some really fun data to go through that. So I will be talking about some features, about some upcoming release items. So I have to throw out the safe harbor statement just in case they don't make it into the releases. Please don't hold me accountable, or Oracle. We're doing our best though. So let's talk about what's new in OAC over OBIEE. So I'm gonna let this slide build out a little bit, and I'm not gonna talk about every single square, but it truly is my favorite. It's my favorite slide when we're talking about the analytics cloud, because very quickly you should be able to see this, not necessarily a tool, it's actually a platform. And the reason I say that is because if we start at the bottom and we're looking at the data sources, you have the option to connect. If you have OBIEE now, you're going to have your RPD, your semantic model, your repository, whatever you want to call it. That is absolutely still going to be usable. So that piece hasn't gone away. In fact, it's being enhanced. Every release, there's something new coming through, or new capability, or a new connection that you can have. But there's also the ability to direct connect to data sources. And the data sources that you see listed on the bottom are not a comprehensive list. This is really just to highlight that it's Oracle data sources, it's non-Oracle data sources, it's cloud, it's on premises. And so a hybrid environment is actually the norm. It's not the exception these days. But what's also nice about this is that the data doesn't have to be cached or queued, is that all the data can be live, even if the data is on premises. And so you don't have to worry about, if I have data on premises and I want to visualize it in the analytics cloud, you don't have to worry about storing it somewhere and then moving data. That is absolutely not the case at all. But you do have a bunch of different options as far as the data and model catalog, because you can even create machine learning models that you can train on data that's already in your database and then apply it to a new data set, or even create a new data set from all those pieces. So there's a lot more options that are available to you in the analytics cloud over OBIEE. Now, the data preparation layer is going to be brand spanking new for any OBIEE customers, and this is really called data flows in the system, and it really does allow you to modify the data, or add columns, or create two different columns. Maybe if you want to filter out for certain data and create new data sets, etc. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can do this. And if you can pick from a drop-down list, then you can do this. This is meant to be for the end user. It's not meant for IT to govern or anything like that. So it's absolutely end user driven. There's also the ability to create and cultivate your own machine learning models at this level too. So again, you don't have to worry about knowing any code. This is a no-code environment to make this happen. There's also the ability within the tool, we call it recommendations, data recommendations, where the system will automatically look at the data and make some recommendations to you. So if you have a city and state, it may say, do you want to append your latitude and longitude, or do you want to append the population, those different pieces? Or if you have something that looks like, if you're working with HR data, for example, and you have social security numbers coming through, it'll automatically ask you, do you want to obfuscate, the first 5 digits or whatever. So we built all of this in. And then even there's going to be some new releases coming. They're going to be able to take data sets that you have within your own environment and enrich them, and recommend enrichment with other data sets within your environment. For example, say if you have a prescription, for example, and you have the prescription number, whatever, and it said, hey, do you want to append the prescription number with the actual drug name, for example? That is going to be available to you in the future. And so it's only being built, this data preparation is being built so that you have more data available to you with less work and less hunting and pecking to try to find it. And finally, when we're going to actually present this data, you have your standard dashboards. Your analysis and dashboards haven't gone anywhere. Your BI publisher for your pixel perfect reporting hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, there are enhancements being made to those. If you have agents or anything like that, it's all absolutely still there. Now, if you had 12C and you actually enabled visual analyzer, that was available to you in 12C, but I got to be honest, and I use it as well, and it was very limited. And so even though we never really had the self-service analytics piece prior to 12, 12 is really the first foray, and I can tell you that now that's where the R&D is going as far as Oracle's concerned. There's been a lot of enhancements, a lot of improvements, and it's starting to stand out in the marketplace as well. So if you had Mobile Analytics Designer before, MAD, that has gone away in the cloud in favor of being able to access the dashboard URLs and/or data visualization to self-service projects directly via the URL. It's now built on HTML5 technology or responsive technology, which means it doesn't matter if you're accessing the website from your phone or your iPad or your laptop. It's going to render appropriately for your device. But there's also a component that has this called day by day. And what that is it's like an ad hoc visualization tool for your phone, but it still connects to all these different data sources you have. So if you have, since my history is Essbase, if you have Essbase in your RPD, you can actually access that on the fly. Maybe you're on the plane, on the train driving home, and you say, what were my sales versus my cost of goods sold for the past 4 quarters for all regions, and it'll, in the background, it'll generate for you. It's taking that natural language. You could also type it in if you wanted to, but taking that natural language and actually going back to our data models and being able to represent this data. And so this is meant to be used by everybody, whether it be the end user or a data scientist. There's a place for everybody in here. So like I said, this is my favorite slide because it kind of sets the tone for everything, and that it's a lot more than OBIEE just was. OBIEE was the tool. This is now a platform. Some of the major capabilities that have been built into OAC over OBIEE is that natural language. So it's not necessarily just processing, being able to take what we say or what we're asking of the tool and use it with computers, right? And generate the data that we want, but then also just being able to generate a visualization that's actually words. So it actually uses, instead of, if you have a bar graph showing, say, profit over the past 4 years, you can actually create a visualization that's words, paragraph, sentences, if you will, that tells you any kind of anomalies or trends in your data. And so this allows for just the entire platform to be to work together a lot deeper than it used to. So there's a lot more capabilities built in. There's even more being built in that is truly based on machine learning and artificial intelligence, in addition to everything you already know. So if you think about the analytics platform as it is now, and I had this red box for a reason, so I'm going to ignore it here in the beginning. But if you look at the analyze column, you have Oracle Analytics, so that is going to be truly your your OBIEE or your homepage, your data visualization. There's now a unified homepage for this, or day by day, which is that the mobile app. You can connect directly to your data sources or to a semantic model. That's absolutely all available to you. So you can see some of the options that you can connect to are Oracle and non-Oracle. It is flat files. It is all the different pieces. If your various Oracle applications, you can access those as well. If we look at the integrate column, you have that real-time connection. So there's nothing you need to have in between. And then you can also, if you have object storage in the cloud on OCI, you can access everything there. But also it works with, if you have Oracle Data Integrator or Oracle Integration Cloud, you can still use that here as well. So if you have additional sources that maybe are outside of what's out of the box, you can use these. And then there's the column for store. So the autonomous data warehouse, we consider it part of the analytics platform. It's not part of the analytics cloud per se, if you will. But what it is a data warehouse that self-tunes, self-fixes. And so if you are not a DBA, but you want a data warehouse, this is exactly for you. But it also has components built in. So it comes with Oracle Machine Learning and Spatial, which I'll talk about in a second. So it truly is a platform these days. And so just thinking about OBIEE, if you will, that's just one little piece of the puzzle now. It's not necessarily the whole puzzle. So I'm not going to go too deep into this one, but you can see now the different pieces that you have. Because if you think about what analytics really is, you have the govern piece, and that used to be, it still is, the semantic layer, if you will. So you have that one version of the truth or single version of the truth. That is absolutely all still there. And so you can still have your row and your role-based security. But then you also now have this self-service analytics component, and where, I mean, if you think about it, people are truly more savvy about data than they were maybe 25 or 30 years ago, just because we've all grown up with it. It's all been in our careers a lot more than it was 30 years ago. And so we understand data pretty well. So now we want to go ahead and play within our own. That's now the self-service component. And really figuring out that last trifecta of the analytics triangle, if you will, it's going to be that augmented. And, tell me what I don't know, or analyze my data and tell me something that I don't see on my own. And that's really where this comes into play. And that's also where the machine learning and AI comes in, because it does allow you to pick a column of data, for example, and say, tell me about, explain that one-click explain. And it's going to go through and analyze that column compared to the other columns in the data set and tell me what are the segments, what are the different pieces of my data, what are any anomalies in my data, right? It takes that human piece out of it, that human bias, and tells us stuff about our data that we may not be looking for. So going into a little bit deeper on some of the different pieces behind the additional functionalities or capabilities within the analytics cloud, one is truly autonomous. And what this means is it's Oracle managed. So we update the analytics cloud approximately quarterly. So you get quarterly updates, and this includes feature set updates. This includes any kind of bugs, patches, or anything that's needed. That's done throughout the 3 months. So it's not necessarily on that quarterly update, but this is all done for you. So you don't have to worry about administering a server or a service or anything like that. This is all done for you now. You can also scale it. So it's just a matter of clicking from a drop down. So my personal instance that I have here is, it's just a small one, it's a 2, but if I wanted to go up to 8, it's just a matter of picking from a drop down list and waiting a couple minutes, and then voila, I have a sized environment. So, and to set it up is truly just choosing from a list and saying, hey, build it out. Here's the size that I want, and then waiting about 15 minutes. So it's really easy to set up. And I'm going to come back to Data Gateway in a minute, because that's going to be more for the migration piece. When we talk about open connectivity, this is the direct connectors that I was talking about. So in OBIEE, you really did have to have an RPD connection to a data source if it wasn't flat, right? So if it wasn't Excel or CSV that you loaded up, say, on the visual analyzer side, for example, then you kind of needed to build out that RPD. Well, now we have about 50 different connectors that you can connect to directly, and you're seeing them right here. Again, so if you have Salesforce data that you want to mash up with maybe your CRM data, you could absolutely do that here. And so mashing up different data sets together into one is really what this tool is made for. So, and it's also fully integrated with the Autonomous Data Warehouse. So as I stated earlier, so Oracle Advanced Analytics in the Database and Oracle Spatial used to be separate products offered by Oracle that you could add into your database. They are now included with the Autonomous Data Warehouse. So if you want to do machine learning, which used to be called Advanced Analytics, you can do those now, and you can access your machine learning models and the data sets created from those within the analytics cloud. Same thing with spatial. So if you want to do spatial analysis, it's going to be available for you in analytics, the analytics cloud. So you can go ahead and do any kind of, if you want to open this up to your end users, it's not going to be a big deal. It's truly just, essentially giving them access to that data set. It's truly simple. I had talked earlier about data flows being a new piece of the puzzle, if you will. And so what this allows you to do is, if you wanted to join together multiple different data sets to create maybe one in the end, you have that option. So you just pick, you don't have to write any kind of inner joins or outer joins or left joins or anything like that. You can actually just go ahead and choose 2 different data sets and then choose what that join is on from a drop-down list. So again, this is meant to be used for the end user. So if they wanted, so here we have 3 different data sets that are being joined together, and then it's doing an aggregation, filtering out all that data set for maybe a certain piece of the puzzle you're looking for. Maybe you just want HR data or just finance data, for example, because then you can go to, and then you can save the data if you wanted to. But there's also the ability to do sentiment analysis. So if you ran a survey and you want to analyze without looking at every single line, are we doing generally good or generally bad? You can allow the system to do a sentiment analysis for you. There's also the ability, if you do have Essbase, that you can take the data that you have from these different sources and create your own Essbase cube. So if you wanted to be able to do some highly formatted pivot tables with some calculations and all that, you can build that in as well without actually having to know how to build out an outline in Essbase, for example. There's also the ability to have well, it's not the ability, it's truly built out this way now, that you have a unified homepage. And so instead of having, if you had seen this before, you had the data visualization homepage, and then you had your classic homepage or your OBIEE homepage. Those have now been merged into one, although if you went to the OBIEE side, if you will, you're still going to have that layout that you're used to seeing. So for me, I'm used to it the old way. So I go to that classic view all the time, make my catalog to find my pieces, but I could easily search for everything that I wanted to see in here as well. So, and this supports, so if you see that little bar, and let me try to highlight here, the search everything. If you know you have data that you're looking for, but you don't know exactly where it's at, you can actually just go ahead and type in, say, revenue, and it's going to pull up all the different data columns or data sets that have revenue in it. So you can pick the one that you want. So instead of trying to hunt and peck through a whole bunch of data sets, you can go ahead and just enter it in. If you like talking to your computer, you can set it up so you can talk to it as well. But I find that usually when I'm talking to my computer. I'm not saying nice things to it, but you have the option to do so. As I was saying earlier, there's the ability to do natural language processing. So it really does interpret what you were saying. There's also the natural language generation as well. And this is the visualization I was telling you about. These two visualizations are essentially the same, but now it's just laid out in words. Now it's not just saying January was this, February was that. What it's saying is it's going to show any kind of trends or analysis or anomalies in your data, any kind of segmentation is happening. So there's actually a machine learning cart analysis occurring on the back end that's analyzing the data that you have visible there. So I come from a financial analytics background. And so I tell people all the time, say, if you have to do commentary every month, possibly use this. Let it tell you something maybe you're not seeing in your own data as a potential starting point for your commentary. As I was saying, we have self-service. So if you wanted to build out your own visualizations, you can. And I will say, if you in the past have history with trying to set up graphs, trying to set up maps within OBIEE, it could be a little bit tedious, but now it's already built in for you. So you don't have to go about setting up any kind of special connectors to make the maps work. They work out of the box. But you can also add your own custom layers. So if you wanted to build out your own grid, maybe it's your office layout, for example, if you wanted to add that, or maybe you wanted to add something to, maybe you want your house, where does most of my heat go to, for example. You can set that all up here, and it's not that difficult. So these are all tools that are built in, very easy to do what if scenarios, because you can build on the fly. You can also create your own custom calculations within here too, if you know how to drag and drop column names and you're ready to go. It truly is meant for the end user. So now I'm going to dig a little bit more into the artificial intelligence and machine learning that Oracle is spending some time really putting on R&D money into, and where this tool is really headed. So I stated earlier that we had this one-click explain option. And what this allows you to do is you can either do it on an attribute or a fact dimension, if you will. And it's going to, so this one's focusing on a fact. It will tell you the basic facts. So this is just going to be your, of product A, you sold B, of product C, you sold D, for example. But there's also the anomalies. So it'll go through and say, hey, for this region, we expected sales to be X and they were actually Y. And it'll go through and answer all this. So if you wanted to dig in more, you could. Maybe you had a sales rep that resigned and say that territory was missing. You would know the answers to that. But you can also take these visualizations you see by the green check marks. If you wanted to use these, instead of just seeing them and you want to actually use them and act upon them, or maybe mash them up with another data source, you just click a checkbox and then all of a sudden it's going to be available for you in the background. And you can also add advanced analytics in here as well by doing just one click. So within the tool, you can go ahead and create, so here they're doing a numeric prediction, but if you had a category prediction, or if you had, if you wanted to do Boolean prediction, yes or no, if you're doing attrition analysis, for example, it's just a matter of dragging and dropping or picking which one you want and then choosing from the list. So you have defaults that are set for you, but if you know what you want a little bit deeper, you can also customize these as well. So you're not stuck to what the system has, but this is a great starting point for anybody's foray into machine learning. And finally, we have the mobile analytics. So this is day by day, and let me double check, make sure, there we go. So this allows you to do analytics on the fly. So you can see here that these cards were brought up, they're called cards, and you can see different pieces about your data, or maybe if you're just kind of hanging around, if you want to talk to it, you can. But it also has capabilities called bring back. And so if you want to get a certain visualization or card data KPI, what have you, you can have it come back, say every Monday morning at 9 a.m. I want to know what my sales were last week. You can bring that up, but you can also bring it up by location. So I have a customer that I've worked with in the past that wants to do analysis on their individual retail stores. And so when they go to a certain store location, they want a notification or on the phone, the bring back on the phone, so that they know immediately what all the KPIs are on the store and it's delivered to them. It's not, they don't have to go hunting and pecking for it. And you can always modify these graphs if you want to add to it, take it away, if you want to zoom in, filter, etc. Share with other people, you can absolutely do that. So this takes mobile analytics, the MAD mobile analytics designer, mobile application designer, sorry, and kind of puts it to shame in my opinion. So if we look a little bit more into data visualization, as I was saying, this is really the biggest new piece. I mean, there are components, but this is a big new piece, right? I was talking earlier that Visual Analyzer was the tool in 12C, and I think we can all agree it wasn't up to par, but we had to start somewhere, right? And so data visualization is a new product. I love that they gave it a new name when they completely redid everything, kind of as that new starting point. But if we start looking at different visualizations or different projects, is what they're called, we can see that there's quite a bit here. So if we take a look at some of the capabilities, we're looking at the top, we see that the dotted lines that are really the value in USD, comparing, you can do some trellising. I talked earlier, spatial with the graphs is native out of the box. And then, I mean, you look at the bottom, you can see that you can have different tabs. So these are similar to what would be, you know, different pages on a dashboard or tabs on a dashboard. This really isn't any different. And you can link all these together or have them be totally separate. You can have as many data sources as you want or just one. It's really up to you. You can also do some advanced analytics here. So you can see we have the scatter plot, but if I wanted to add clustering to this, or if I wanted to add outliers to this, it would just be a right-click option. As I was saying, you can always do your, you can create maps on the fly. So if you have something local or a local map that you want to bring in or use, or even use what's in the system, you can build that out as well. And then here this is kind of highlighting some more of the advanced analytics. This is, you can see the regression lines that are being built out, and you have different types. You're not just stuck with a linear. So if you maybe have seasonal, or if you have a polynomial, you can build all that in. And so this is, yeah, I mean, like I said, you can pick from a drop-down list and you're off and running. But you're not limited to just graphs, right? You can go ahead and have full numbers show. And then if you have in your data, if you have pictures, maybe you have a product, you don't necessarily have Megan Rapinoe or something like that, you can go ahead and pick that out. But this one is really just to show how you can combine things together. I think one of our product directors actually made this, huge soccer fan. But you can also see if this gold scored by minutes played, we have our outliers thrown in. So you can see, you know, so this particular block is Megan Rapinoe. So you can see how the other visualizations filtered out for her. So you can use any visualization as a filter to really drill into your data. It's also called data brushing, right? Where if you pick one piece, it shows you in the other visualizations where that works out. So let's go into the actual migration options and considerations. So if you're thinking like, that looks really good, what is the process to get there from my side? So if you're starting with 11, the process to upgrade to OAC easily becomes easier. If you're on version 11.117 or later, if you're prior to that, it's my recommendation would be upgrading to at least 11.117, if not 12, just to make your life even easier. So if you're on version, if you're on 11, I would say 11G versus saying 11.117 all the time. You have the option, there's a special migration utility that's going to be available to you. And so once you go ahead and get your instance, your OAC instance up and running, when you go to the console and to the snapshots, you're going to have the option to migrate. And this one is specifically for 11. So there's going to be a migration utility that you'll download. And then you'll run the migration tool jar file, which is, if you have OBIEE 12C, for example, it's a bar file that's essentially creating. And then you'll go ahead and use this special dropdown for migrate to actually upload and then restore it. And restore just means apply that environment to your OAC instance. Now, I will say this isn't instantaneous. If you have a very large environment, this could take 15, 20, 30 minutes. So I tell people, if you're uploading your current environment, go ahead and restore it and then go to lunch. And then log out, come back in, and you should be ready to go. So this is going to include the RPD, is all your analyses, your dashboards, all the different pieces that you have, any kind of agents, BI publisher, all that. Obviously, you want to go and test these when you're done, but it does pull everything out for you. If you have on-premises data sources, this is the remote data gateway that I said I was going to bookmark until later. That's what this piece is. So if you have any on-premises data sources, you're not out of luck. There's a tool that's called Remote Data Gateway, and that basically acts as that go between your on-premises and your cloud source and your analytics cloud, if you will. So there's a few different processes you'll have to go through. You'll either install Remote Data Gateway on a local machine, on a local server. It's small, so it's not asking a lot. You know, you don't need to dedicate a whole server to it unless you really want to. But you could also theoretically, if you wanted to spin up a compute instance on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, you could have that option as well. There's going to be some security pieces behind it that you'll need to work out, but it's absolutely fine. Hybrid environments are the norm, not the exception. I believe I said that earlier, so certainly don't get scared if you have on-premises data. So I wanted to put in this link to how you deploy Remote Data Gateway, because there's a lot of different options. Like I said, it can either be on premises, you can do it in the cloud, but there's also, if you're doing it in the cloud, there's private subnet. If you have OAC in a private subnet, there's certain ways you got to do it, or local peering, etc. So I wanted to show you all options. And if you truly want to see the 11G migration documentation, you can go to that link. It's really just what I showed you anyways. If you're on 12C, it becomes even easier. So at this point, you're just going to create a bar file, a BI archive file. You're just going to use that export service instance option. So once you do that, you just come into the tool and you choose to upload snapshot. And then once it's loaded, then you click on the hamburger and do restore. And the same kind of thing. If you have a large environment, click restore, go get lunch, come back and start testing. The same rules apply. If you have on-premises data, you'll need to use Remote Data Gateway. So that applies for migrated items, but then also net new going forward. So if you want to add in a new data connection that's on-premises, you will need to use Remote Data Gateway. But I can tell you, is you set it up once and then you're good to go. So some considerations that you may need to take before, or may want to consider before you fully move to OAC. I mean, some may be good, some may be bad. Depending on your data sources, you want to take an inventory of all of them, because you may have to use Remote Data Gateway. Like I said, it's not a big deal. You set it up once and you're good to go, essentially. If you have HFM, Hyperion Financial Management, as one of the data sources in your RPD, you're kind of going to be out of luck. Is a direct way of saying that. That is one thing that we cannot connect to right now. So if you have that on premises, just note that if you move up to the analytics cloud, you won't be able to bring that piece up with you. However, if you have any EPM SaaS tools, then you don't even have to use the RPD anymore. You can actually go and there's a direct connection now available to you. And this will work for enterprise, planning and budgeting cloud service, financial closing consolidation, as well as tax reporting cloud service. So if you've been thinking about going from HFM to FCCS and you want to go to the analytics cloud, this is a great opportunity because you're going to be able to use that data out of the box right now. If you have on-premises Essbase, then Remote Data Gateway hasn't yet caught up. So there's a prior tool that was called Remote Data Connector that you'll use. However, the safe harbor, clearly, the upcoming release is supposed to have Essbase be supported via Remote Data Gateway. So if you, and then that's imminent. It's supposed to be coming out very soon, to be honest with you. So it may not even be a consideration, a month from now. We'll see how things actually roll out. But it'll require a different one. But again, it's not a big deal. It just is what it is right now. So if you have security, so just like every other cloud provider, Oracle uses its own identity management system, if you will. So Oracle has Identity Cloud Service, which used to be Identity and Access Management on premises. However, if you run your security through Microsoft Active Directory, for example, or through Okta for your SSO, those can still be used. You still can manage your OAC environment through these security through these tools. That's not a problem. You'll just have to, there's a couple different versions of Identity Cloud Service, and so you just need to make sure you pick the right one when you set it up, and that way you can have everything cascade through for you. So not necessarily a big deal, but I always like to say, if you're going to be talking to anybody, especially in sales, that might be trying to figure out what's right for your environment, make sure you tell them about how you handle security. And my last slide that I have is the sizing and pricing, because this comes up a lot. The good news is just over a year ago, so 14 months ago, the Analytics Cloud was repriced. So it was $2,000 per OCPU for the enterprise version and $1,000 for professional. Let's fast forward to 2 months ago, that price got reduced again. So there are two different options. And so professional, OAC professional is only data visualization. That's all it is. So you're not going to get a semantic layer. You're not going to get that one version of the truth, but you do have a tool for visualization, and those direct connectors still apply. However, enterprise is everything you had in OBIEE plus data visualization. So clearly the bang for your buck is in enterprise, but if you wanted to have like that, you know, a test or whatever, I mean, you could go professional, but enterprise gives you everything that you would want. So if we're talking about the standard price, and I say standard because depending on who you are, you as a customer, and your annual spend with Oracle, there could be some discounts that may be able to be applied. If we're looking purely at professional, it's going to be $800 for Oracle Central Processing Unit, OCPU, plus storage. So, and storage really has to do with how many flat files or CSV files you've loaded up into your environment. And so it could be, you know, upwards of $68 a month or less, depending on how much you actually store. So it's not that much. It's negligible, truly, honestly. But then for the enterprise, you know, that all in is $1,600 plus the storage fee. But then there's also the option of BYOL. So if you're a current OBIEE customer and you're considering the BYOL pricing, then that's only $240 per OCPU. But you do still have to pay your support. So that 22% support that you're paying each year, you will have to pay that still in addition to the actual OCPU cost as well, plus the storage. So I always like to throw that out there. So if you're evaluating, do I want to do UCC, that's Universal Cloud Credit, UCC or BYOL, because UCC includes your license and support, all inclusive in that cost. So if you're evaluating those two, you do need to throw in your support dollars to see what that number is going to be. And I always get asked, how do you size for your environment? It has nothing to do with how many dashboards or analyses or data sources or anything else you have. It has nothing to do with that. It's based on the number of concurrent users. So what I normally talk to my customers when I'm asking them about this, I'll ask them, well, how many users do you have? Well, I have 500 users total. Okay, but if you're doing month-end closing or at the highest peak of the month, how many users might that be? Are we talking about, you know, 10%, 50%? And, you know, if it's 10%, then you actually have 50 concurrent users. We size for that. We size for the 50 concurrent users, not for the 500 users, because unless we're all accessing the system at the same time, then we would need to adjust accordingly. So you can always do your own cost estimators. So I will say that for a production environment, the 2 OCPUs is going to be the smallest that you can go with. For obviously, there's one that you can use for dev and test, but it's not recommended to do anything below 2 for production. And obviously, depending on how many concurrent users you have, it will go up from there. All right, so if you want to see any more, oracle.com/analytics is the place you can go. And also, we have our roadmap. So we've actually listed out there now so certain features, what quarter we're planning to release it in. So we're becoming a lot more transparent about where we're going, what we're doing, what are features that are coming up next. So absolutely encourage you to go out and hold us accountable. So let's go ahead and dive into a demo here. So let me get rid of this meeting control and refresh. So I want you guys to be able to see what's going on here. And like I said, if you have any kind of, if you have MSAD or Azure AD or Okta, those are all integrated. So now you can see exactly how you log in, because I'm going in through Oracle's SSO. And I may have to enter in a one-time PIN. I always joke around, this is a one-time PIN that I enter in about 17 times a day. So just got it on my watch. So 872577. So if you do have two-factor authentication built into your security, you can absolutely build it in here. And I always say that just because I know that there's security is a big deal and should be. So I always like to highlight that. So what you're looking at here is now this unified homepage. So between OBIEE and data visualization, you can search for everything. So these are the ones I've been in most recently, but I could also go down and see what are the different projects that are out there, what are any different dashboards and analyses, different data sets or data flows, et cetera. I can find this all here. But also if I wanted to look at, say, if I looking for something and I was looking for, you know, income, for example, I can run through all the different pieces that I have to find what I need. So here I can have everywhere where income is listed. I can also, if I want to see just a certain data type or a certain piece of the OAC puzzle, if you will, I could list that out here. So if I was looking at where all my data flows, it's going to show me that right away. And if I had any kind of data crawl set up on the back end so I could search my data, I could also list that here too. So what I want to show here is because I'm really highlighting moving from OBIEE to OAC, I could come in here and always click on this, my dashboard here for sales analysis, but I also go to Classicum, and Classicum makes me feel old. So if you feel old, don't feel bad, because to me, it's not classic. It's still the king. It got a new skin, right? It got a new cloud skin to be a little bit lighter, just like we went from 11 to 12, it got lighter. 12 to the cloud, it just looks cleaner now. But everything that you had before is all there. So if you're looking at analysis or dashboard or BI publisher, all these different pieces are all there. I go to the catalog, it's going to look exactly the same because it's going to operate exactly the same. So you don't have to worry about we're learning new muscles and where to go and how do I hunt and peck for the things I used to have. It's absolutely all still here. So if I come down to my dashboard, and like I said, my background is financial analytics, and I choose the monthly financials dashboard, it's gonna take all the dashboards that I had before, and if they were built just on the default visualization, I'm sorry, default look and feel, this one's just Alta, then it's going to update and render appropriately. But if you have any kind of special customizations and all that, that's something that you may want to talk to the people at Oracle that you're working with about those customizations to make sure they can come over. Quite a few of them can, but just wanted to just double check to see what you actually have. So I'm always the first to admit I'm not creative when it comes to my dashboards. I kind of just wanted to give me information. So if you're new to the Analytics Cloud and to OBIEE, there are much different options that you can have. So here I have these calculations, KPIs running for me in the back end, and I want to know. So obviously this my fictional company here is really kind of weird. You know, we can see that their return on equity and debt to equity ratio is really bad, yet they have nearly 100% gross profit margin. So obviously not a real company. But you can also play around with the different visualizations. So just because something is presented to you a certain way doesn't mean that's the way it has to be. For example, if I wanted to move my years, you know, maybe into my graph, I could build this out pretty easily, but maybe I want to pull out the different ratios and have them be in a prompt or something like that. You could play around with that, and it doesn't affect anybody else. There's also Spark lines that have been built in. I believe this is an upgrade from 12C. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. So now you have Spark lines that are able to built in to show trending very quickly and easily, but then also maybe see when's the high point and low point. We have sliders, I like going through the years, kind of see how we're doing year over year. You can always build things in. But you also have your standard, if you want to just look at and say an income statement, but maybe if you want to drill in and say, hey, what were my operating expenses breakdown? If I want to drill into detail, you can always drill down to detail. And so for people that have been around OBIEE, this is going to work exactly the same. So everything that you had before is going to come in and work just as it did. Like I said, you don't have to relearn anything. But what a real win for me, and truly this is over anything that we had even with Visual Analyzer, is that say if you have a visualization that you want to drill into more, or you say, I want to mash up data, or I want to analyze this further, or XYZ, you can click one button and say, I want to export this as a project. So you're going to see an orange exclamation point come up. And really what that's saying is like, hey, those sliders and those drop downs you had before, that's not what I do. So those haven't been brought over. But what has is the subject area. So all the different places where the data source and all the different columns and any kind of filters you had in your data are going to come over and be built out for you. And from here, I'm not stuck just looking at it and thinking, well, what do I do with it now? You can actually start playing around. So if I wanted to break out the years by put it into a trellis row, and we'll just expand this out to make it look good. So I can see that, you know, I would have my years broken out for me if I wanted to, or I could, I'll take the year off. But I can play around with this as much as I want. So maybe I want my year in as a color. For example, just drag it over. And it's only filtering out for 2017, probably because my year down here is filtered for me. But now I can see year over year, how am I looking? So if I bring this up, or maybe if I just want to say these, I want to look at these only a little bit deeper. I don't care about all the other ones. I can drill in very easily or filter out for the data. And so when I do that, the other visualizations also filter out. And so I can choose, so if I'm looking for this one, if I'm going to look at, say, hey, United Kingdom FY17, you'll see that I have this point selected, but then there's a bar over here that's selected. And then I have United Kingdom that's highlighted. It's called pattern brushing. So what you can do is you can pick a point or a range of points in a visualization and see what they look like, or if there's any kind of correlation between the other visualizations that I've built out. But you're not stuck with just with just one canvas. You can always add more canvases, and say if I want to build out my own, say if I have years and I want to add the quarters, and then maybe I want to choose by product, I want to analyze the different products by quarters, etc. It's automatically going to give you visualizations, because I say it likes to please you. So no matter what data you choose, it's going to give you something. So I guess I need a number in here too. So let's look at gross sales. And I always like to compare it to the returns and the net allowances to see what's going on. So, I mean, this table's good and fine, but the reality is I want to start seeing pretty pictures, right? So maybe I want to, so now I have my gross sales and returns and allowances. And my returns and allowances is a little low, but I want to see it as a separate Y2 axis now. And then I'll go ahead and put it as a bar. So we can really truly analyze, okay, relatively speaking, for the first quarter, Columbia bottled cola, the returns were not in line with maybe what the sales were, or maybe we had a particular month where they were good. Metolius brands was doing well. And so we can start building this out very easily. And so you can either start with a dashboard and then open that up as a project in data visualization, or you can start from scratch. There's also the ability to add data. So if you wanted to add another data set, you could do that as well. And so whether it be a flat file, so you see here, there's some CSV files and Excel files, or even other databases. This one happens to be an autonomous database, but it could easily be an on-premises SQL Server database, for example, or an F-Space Cube. But you can bring in as many data sets as you want. I had a coworker that tested out to 40 and just got bored. So as long as it keeps working, right? But you can also build in other subject areas. So if you wanted to mash up two different subject areas, maybe if you had revenue, if you had a revenue subject area, then you had an expenses subject area that you wanted to mash together to see maybe what's going on, you can do that here too. You can also still create drill throughs just like you did before, that's not a problem. If you wanted to create a new set, it's very easy to create a direct connection. So when I say direct connection, that means that no semantic layer, RPD, repository, whatever you want to call it, none of that is needed. So if you, excuse me, I was talking earlier that if you have an EPM SaaS application you want to connect to, you're just going to choose that connector. Or if you have Salesforce, you're going to choose that connector. Or Essbase, you could either just choose these. And it really is as simple as giving it a name, what is the URL, and username and password. And so when I talked earlier about if you're going to be using remote data gateway or remote data connector, et cetera, you just have to check this here and just make sure you set up that connection. I always like to highlight security because what's nice is you don't have to worry about managing security in two places. It's truly maintained at the source. And so whenever I'm setting up a connection, I almost always use the active user's credentials, because if you have any kind of row or role-based security built into the source, or in Essbase use filters as the data source, then it will honor that source system security. So like I said, there is no managing the security in this. It will truly take it from the source. So if that's changing daily, then you're set to go. If I go back to my home, I'm going to say don't save. And I'm going to go to the, this is always the hamburger. So you have your catalog, and this is similar to with the catalog that you would have in OBIEE, except it's really just folders. So by default, you have your own folders, and everything you create is just for you. You have to choose to give security to other people, or access to, whether it be folders or projects that you have to choose to give them access. You can also create shared folders. So if you have the marketing group that wants to have their own, or the operations group that wants to have their own, then you can set that up, and that's not gonna be a problem. So you can just, so here this one's called Share with Nyan. And so if I go to the inspect, what this allows me to see is, one, the general details about it, but also who has access and what kind. Now, the only person that can give access to anybody else for a certain folder or data set is the creator or an administrator. So you don't have to worry about this floating around and all that. So you can either choose by user. So if I wanted to choose myself, I can just start typing my name and it'll come up, or if I can choose a certain role, that's there as well. If I go to the data tab, you can see all the different data pieces, if you will, that belong in data visualization outside of the RPD. And so I have all my data sets here listed, and you get visual confirmation of what kind of data set it is. And so you don't have to worry about, is this a flat file, is it a direct connection, what is it? So you have actual connections as well. So like I said, this one's an Oracle database and an autonomous data warehouse, but you have all the different connection options that you have. If you have any kind of data flows, let me open this up to show you what that looks like. So here, this one's just doing some, well, this is gonna be a machine learning thing for predicting attrition. So you have to train your model first, right, on data. And so we just choose that data set, and then from here, we just choose, I chose the binary classifier, and then it fills in for you. And so you don't have to worry about doing that. But if this wasn't a machine learning piece, if you just want to use it to truly do a light ELT on your data, extract, load, transform, you can do that by, if you want to join or whatever. But I also do like to show that you can group and bin the data as well. So if you're in marketing and you want to start classifying your potential customers or people you're trying to reach out to, you can have this system do that for you. You can also build in, like I said before, the sentiment analysis, or if you want to build out a forecast. There are multiple ways to build out a forecast in this tool, and there are multiple different options. So if you have, if you want to do an ARIMA or a seasonal ARIMA, or maybe exponential time series, you can do all that. And then you can see down here, if you want to do a binary or clustering, you can build that all in as well. So the next on the list, and I'm trying to get through this knowing how much time I have left, these are called sequences. And what sequences are is just a collection of different data flows. So if you know that one of your data sets is updated on Monday, one's on Wednesday, one's on Thursday, and then you want to have those run in a specific order on specific days, for example, you can create a sequence so that can be scheduled for you. And then you automatically have your updated data set and visualizations likewise afterwards ready to go. Data replications are really neat. So if you have an Oracle SAS tool, and you'll know that there's some limitations on how you can export that data and access that data for analysis. What the replication allows you to do is connect directly to your Oracle SAS application and copy the data over from that source into a relational database, whether it be on premises or whether it be autonomous data warehouse or whatever you may have is totally fine. So this allows you to get by that 75,000 row limit download, but also be able to access more of your data and combine it, mash it up with other data that you might have in your organization, for example. So you can see here, if you have, say, Eloqua, if you have Taleo, etc., or if you have a Fusion SaaS application, Fusion ERP, Fusion SCM, whatever that may be, you can actually go ahead and copy that data over. So it's definitely a useful tool if you have those data sets. And so there's also machine learning. So if you do have a machine learning model that you've built out and you want to see how good a model is it will actually tell you the quality of your model. So if you need to tweak it a little bit, it'll give you those answers as well. And to see if you want to have anybody access it or not. So the final place I'm going, because I know this is an OBIEE to OAC, and there might be some OBIEE admins on here, that this is more or less the administrator console, if you will. So everything that you had on the back end is now on the front end. So you don't have to worry about restarting services or this and that. It will take care of it for you. I will say that the BI admin client, what am I thinking of? The admin console is what I'm trying to think of. That's actually going to be coming to the cloud. So like I said, it's going to be safe harbor, but that's going to be coming to the cloud, so no need for a Windows machine. So those of us who have a Mac are very thankful for that. So you can see here, if you wanted to add any kind of custom map layers, it's easily done here. Or if you wanted, I've actually connected some visualizations and published them out to LinkedIn before. So you can do that as well. But the snapshots is where I was talking about. If you want to do that migration, it's as kind of easy as clicking snapshots, and then the snapshot place will come up where you can, if you have 11, you can download the migration utility, or if you have 12, you just go ahead and upload your snapshot. So it's all done through here. And like I said, upload it, go for a lunch break, and come back, and you have your on-premises environment in the cloud. So there's all those, a myriad of other different options as well. So you can always play around with these if you want. Oracle does offer, so if you want with your organization, if you want to do a proof of concept, maybe test out some different pieces for your environment, Oracle does offer that. So it starts at 30 days. It can be extended to 60 days. So if you want to double check to make sure that's going to meet the needs that you have, you have that available to you. You just need to talk to your cloud platform representative, and they'll get somebody like me to come in there and help get you started. So I'm going to pause, about 2.5 minutes left. I need to get a drink of water, but Alfredo, were there any questions in the chat that I needed to look at?
There's one question from Morrison, and it says, how many users average per OCPU?
So yeah, this goes back again to the, this is going to be based on concurrent users. And so I can tell you, so we have a certain calculator that we use internally. And so there's kind of rough numbers, but I will tell you that when we're actually going to be looking at the specifics for your environment, we will be asking, well, how many users are using BI Publisher versus analyses versus data visualization, just to make sure we size that out right. But don't hold me to this number, but it's roughly about up to 200 users. You'd probably get away on 2 to 4 OCPUs. So if you have, 10 users, 10 concurrent, or maybe you have 50 concurrent users, you don't need 8 OCPUs. Depending on how you're using the system, 2, max 4 will probably suffice just fine.
That was the only question at this moment. We'll give it another 20 seconds or so, see if anybody else has any questions. But I do want to say thank you for presenting for us today. That was really great.
Yeah, happy to do so. Yeah, next week I'll do it on, so it used to be called Oracle Analytics for applications, and now it's called Fusion Analytics, which is really, really fun. So looking forward to presenting on that next week as well.
The 16th, the week after.
Oh, well then I have an extra week. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, next week, for those who missed the introduction, we have Liran Amitsi, who'll be doing it on schema design. That should be a really good one too.
Yeah, I'll join that.
And then make sure to, if you haven't checked out, that we did put all of our remaining webinar registration links on our website at coug.us, so you can see that. All right, I don't see any other questions, so I think we're good. Again, really appreciate you coming to present for us. I know we've been trying to get you to come out to present for the COUG, and this was the next best thing, having you do it virtually.
So, it is what it is.
Yeah, hopefully in the future we'll have you in person. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, thanks everyone. We will see everyone next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. If you missed the beginning of the recording, you can see it on our YouTube channel, which is just the Chicago Oracle User Group. Thanks everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, Alfredo.
Thanks. Bye.